Welcome inside the studio. It is time for your Week 3 recap. Maria Taylor alongside Matthew Berry, Mike Florio, Devin McCourty, and Jason Garrett. And we're going to start, guys, with you guys being the editors here of a newspaper. If you still read them, great. If you don't, it's kind of like a podcast that's written down in words. But I want you guys to write the headlines from certain games. And Florio, will start with you, with the Cowboys and the Ravens.
I didn't know we were going to have to come up with headlines.
I like to
I'm just trying to buy time by saying that. Exactly. That's a good question. You ever notice that when someone says that's a good question? You're trying to buy time. As I continue to try to buy time, how about better late than never for the Ravens? Because we've seen them blow leads time and again, and as it was falling apart, they settled it down, and maybe this will keep them from continuing to do what we've seen them do so many times. And oh, by the way, Lamar Jackson, 21-1 against the NFC. That's impressive. That is incredible.
What would I go with? Get off the tracks when the train's coming. That's my headline right there. Derrick Henry's coming downhill. Dallas, and they made that decision, right? They made a good decision. Get off the tracks, and they got off the tracks quite often. When you run the ball 45 times out of 60 plays, you let a team know exactly what you're doing.
That was great. Physical, physical, physical. That's what they were today. They dominated the line of scrimmage. Here comes big number 22. The guy looks like he's 11 feet tall. Yeah. Right? You don't want to tackle the guy.
I've had to tackle him before.
Yeah,
Jason.
exactly right.
It's not fun.
I mean, 45 rushes in the game. They went in with a game plan. They executed the plan. They helped their whole team. I do think they have to finish these games better, but that's a huge win for the Ravens.
My headline would be Alice, as in there's no D in Dallas. 464 rushing yards and 7 rushing touchdowns. Thank you, Devin. Devin got it. Devin plays a lot.
I got it. I didn't think it was funny.
I didn't know the spelling of Alice.
A-L-L-A-S. There you go.
There's no Alice in Wonderland. I thought Wonderland.
There's no D in Dallas. Over the last two games, both of which the Cowboys have lost, they've allowed 464 rushing yards, coach, and 7 rushing touchdowns. This is the first time in team history that they've allowed 3 or more rushing touchdowns in consecutive games. This is a team that was supposed to be built on defense. Micah Parsons and the squad, and teams are not scared of that defense. To your point, Devin, they are running right at them. And to me, that's the concern if I'm a Cowboys fan.
It goes back to how they're playing these games. I keep saying this. They had a streak of winning at home 2 straight years. They were dominating people. But the last 3 games they played in their stadium, they're not playing the game they want to play. They're getting behind early. They're neutralizing the front. They're just not playing. The best teams play the game they want to play week in and week out, and Dallas has done that forever. This is not the style of play for them, and they got to figure out how to stop this run, or they're going to have a hard time winning games.
I'm interested to see how they rebound Thursday, because before this game, Micah Parsons comes out and says, didn't feel like people were giving enough effort or playing hard. Then you go to this game, him and Lawrence are getting into it on the sideline. Hooker already in the offseason said Micah Parsons needs to work more on football, get off all the podcasts. So you start to get these things going on in your locker room and the results are bad. I want to see how they respond. Do they come together as a team, go out there, play well Thursday night, or does this thing start to fall apart?
One of the things that we see happen, I think, when a team has a season that felt really good and then it just falls apart in one embarrassing moment like we saw them when they lost to the Packers, how do you go back to 0-0 and do it all over again? Because, hey, we did it last year, and what did it get for us? They just want to fast forward to the postseason. I think that's kind of where the Cowboys are. Let's just get to the postseason and see if we can rectify. You may not get to the postseason the way you're going so far.
All right, next game up is going to be the Eagles taking on the Saints, which was, it took a while for the offenses to get going, but what would be the headline that you would write for this one?
For the Eagles, honestly, look, this was a must-win for the Eagles, and I'll tell you what. I mean, they lose this game, they go down, they become 1-2, and oh, by the way, in this game, they've already lost A.J. Brown. They lose Devontae Smith in this game, and they are lucky to be 2-1 because I don't know if it's just the new system under Kellen Moore, but Jalen Hurts hasn't looked like the same guy this year. And I don't mean to talk negatively about a team that won. They eked out a win. But honestly, if it wasn't for the Keystone Cops play that freed up Goddard at the end, I think they lose this game. And so I would be, if I'm an Eagles fan, I'm like, okay, we got away with one that we may not have, should have won. But like, I'd be nervous going forward for Philadelphia because they have not looked great the last 2 weeks.
The headline for me would be the same anytime Saquon Barkley has a big game this year. John Mara softly weeps because he did not want to see Saquon Barkley leave. based upon how they edited the offseason Hard Knocks. They only put in the stuff where the owner was saying, are we sure we're doing the right thing? They weren't doing the right thing. Barkley came up big. Without Barkley, they don't win that game today.
You had to go and just bring in the negativity to throw it on Mar and the Giants real quick.
Yes.
I get it. Hey,
you should like that.
I do. I enjoy it.
He's been beaten by him twice, and you were there for one of them in the, in the Super Bowl. You want to give it back to him a little bit.
Thanks for reminding me.
That's all right.
I appreciate it. Mine's, hey, Mr. Carter. Jalen Carter, unstoppable. I think when he plays that way, this defense has a chance to be good. When he's not dominant, I think they will struggle. I think he's going to help Sweat. He's going to help Bryce Huff get off the edge better. And who gets the most help? That's secondary when he's able to rush like that. So, Mr. Carter, keep doing your thing.
Yeah,
Jason,
no doubt.
Hey Mr. Carter is a Lil Wayne song.
Oh, really?
Yes.
He knew that. He knew that.
We weren't talking about the boss, so I wasn't sure if you would
might
track
be ludicrous. I really did. That's ludicrous. For me, the headline is redemption. You think about how Philly lost that game to Atlanta on Monday night. And till the end of time, they're going to talk about why you're throwing it there, all of that. Saquon Barkley drops the ball in the flat. The game would have been over. And I know Saquon Barkley competed against him, had the opportunity to coach him. This guy is a determined young man. He wants to be great. He wants to be great for himself, but more importantly, he wants to be great for his team. He felt like he let the team down. And he went down to New Orleans, and he took that game over. And there was redemption on the other side, too, because after Saquon dropped that ball, the defense had a chance to stop the Falcons, and they didn't get it done. And they went down there, and they played with a bitter taste in their mouth. And you said it, Mr. Carter was all over the place against the league's best offense. They had scored 45 points a game coming into the game, and they held them to 12. So I thought they did a great job getting their minds right to go win a ball game.
Yeah, that was 91 points the Saints had scored. They were the hottest offense in the NFL, and, told them to just 12 points. I thought was really impressive for the Eagles. Makes you feel good about Philadelphia on that side of the ball for sure.
Okay, you get to start this one, Florio, because what you guys were able to do, you guys, the Vikings, to slow down C.J. Stroud and make him not look in rhythm and a guy that never seems flustered, it was interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. Like if it's a headline on a piece of newspaper, I don't know how much space, I don't know how many O's would be on. Boo! We're hearing that horn all day long today. The defense getting off the field and the offense doing its part and taking advantage of opportunities. And they had a spot in the third quarter where they were a little bit, sluggish, but they got through that 34-7. That's what the score of last week's game against the 49ers could have been, but for a fumble at the goal line from Aaron Jones when Fred Warner punched out. So, the Vikings had a complete game against a great team, and they just keep it rolling.
It's fun to watch Minnesota right now. My headline would be Purple Rain. Sam Darnold's there, Homer Prince, you get it all. It all works together. 4 touchdowns. Yes, this defense was dominant. They're playing good ball. You beat a San Francisco team and you beat them up on defense, and then you play Houston and you beat them up too. Hat off to Brian Flores, but Sam Darnold getting another shot at this and then going out there, getting hurt. But he's like, they love me here. I can't sit on the sideline. Got back out there and kept throwing touchdowns.
Really good. Mine's gotta get after their butt. They really did in all 3 phases. And it was dominant. The Flores defense, Houston is a really good offensive team. Obviously, Joe Mixon's not in the game. We get that. But they've been pretty good over the last year and change, throwing the football. And the young quarterback, C.J. Stroud, looked like a young quarterback today. They had nothing going. And then the other side, the story of Sam Darnold for me is so great. Just a guy like that who had been in so many bad situations, now he's in a great situation. Kevin O'Connell's as good as anybody developing these quarterbacks. He's comfortable. He's having fun. They're a good football team.
Yeah, my headline would be Kirk who? Honestly, in the offseason when Kirk Cousins went to Atlanta, there was all this consternation and okay, we're going to draft somebody and we're going to sign Sam Darnold, but J.J. McCarthy's the future, and then he gets injured and everyone's just like, oh, what's going to happen? And entering the 4 o'clock games today, no quarterback in the NFL had more touchdown passes than Sam Darnold, who throws 4 today and has looked absolutely brilliant. And in the NFL, you are what your record is, right? I'm a believer in the Bill Parcells quote, right? You are what your record are. But listen, beating the Texans and beating the 49ers in back-to-back games, 2 playoff teams, 2 teams that have legit Super Bowl aspirations this year, and doing it handily. It wasn't like there was a fluke play and weird bounce, bad call, nothing. They were the better team start to finish, and what Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores have done on both sides of that ball, I think if you had to vote today, Coach of the Year, Assistant of the Year. Don't you think? Like, it's unbelievable what the Vikings have done, Mike. You might even smile by midseason.
Well, it's funny. It's funny. You mentioned Cousins. Okay, 2 days before the Super Bowl, Chris and I interviewed Cousins, and we got the impression, primarily from what he said to us afterward, that it was done. It was over. On the afternoon of the Super Bowl, when there's all the pregame show, 20 hours, and they've got news that they have to make, one of the reports was that the Vikings would turn to Sam Darnold. And I just remember thinking, give me a friggin' break, right? Sam Darnold, are you kidding me? Yeah. But I love it. We said it last week. We write guys off based upon where they start their careers, and they finally, some of them, get an opportunity to flourish, and that's what he's got going on now. It's great to see.
Such a cliche, ultimate team sport. No one's affected by their environment more than the quarterback position in the NFL. And there have been a lot of great players through the years have gotten into bad situations and they can never recover. We got a couple great stories going right now. You think about Baker Mayfield resurrecting his career and now Sam Darnold resurrecting his career. It's really fun to see those guys kind of rise back up again and play at the level they're capable of playing.
Insert Geno Smith as well, and then
Absolutely.
If you're Zach Wilson, you're like, it might be all right.
Absolutely.
He's just waiting. He's just
waiting for his chance.
He knows it's coming.
Now, and you said, Florio, was it week 5 when you will come to you and you're going to be like, I'm all the way in on the Vikings?
No. I'm going to resist as long as possible because whenever I go all the way in is when they fail.
Okay.
So it'll inevitably happen, and then they'll fail.
Okay. Let's go to the Chargers taking on Pittsburgh. Coming into the game, we knew that Justin Herbert was hobbled. He ended up having to come out in the third quarter. Steelers defense was swarming. What would be your headline from this one?
It would be 10, just the number 10. That's it. Pittsburgh holding 3 opponents under 10 points, averaging under 10 points, the number 1 scoring defense. Everyone's built up on this. Who's going to be the starters? Is it going to be Fields? Is it going to be Wilson? Who cares? When you're giving up less than 10 points in the NFL per game, that's going to win the game. All you need is a guy on the other side. Just don't turn the ball over. We got to punt every time. We'll probably score on defense. So I think this Steelers defense is what needs to be the headline, what needs to continue to be talked about.
No doubt. Steel Curtain 2, right? They're not the Steel Curtain of the 70s, but they play fantastic defense. They have elite players. If you think about Hayward and T.J. Watt in the front line, Fitzpatrick on the back end, and it's interesting to watch these teams. They're very similar in their approach. J.K. Dobbins has been fantastic the first couple weeks. They want to come into Pittsburgh. They want to play bully ball with them. They weren't having it. They controlled the line of scrimmage the whole game. -5 yards in the second half for the Chargers. I get it. Herbert came out of the ball game, but that's hard to do. Yeah. That's hard to do in Pop Warner, right? Let alone in the National Football League. Really impressive.
Yeah. You got it?
Yeah, I'll go. I'll flip it over to the offense because it's what Calvin Austin III told me after the game. No panic. And that's the difference between last year and this year. And it's funny when you hear someone trying to sound out their explanation, choosing words carefully so there aren't any bombs thrown at last year.
So you don't write a crazy article afterwards.
Right. Possibly. But it came through. Yeah. Last year, it didn't work, and we know it didn't work. They got rid of all their quarterbacks. They got rid of the offensive coordinator. This year, there's no panic whatsoever, no matter whether it's going well, whether it's not going well. Arthur Smith, who got fired by the Falcons, and people are like, well, why would the Steelers hire him? Well, he was good enough as an offensive coordinator in Tennessee to become a head coach. So he's proven he can be a good offensive coordinator, and it's working. And I think that's the key, because the defense is always going to be the defense. The offense is what needed to be better, and it's good enough to get them to 3-0.
Yeah. So my headline would be, Matthew was right. Now, that would be for a newspaper only that delivers to my house, but the fact of the matter is we sat on this very desk, Maria. I'm bringing receipts. We sat on this very desk and in the preseason, and we were all asked, okay, by the end of the year in November, who's going to be the starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers? And everyone on this desk said Russell Wilson except for me, and I said Justin Fields.
I said Kyle Allen.
And I don't wait till November. No, we don't. Russell Wilson is in November.
I got September 23rd.
Russell Wilson's not getting this job back. What Arthur Smith has done, and listen, I killed Arthur Smith last year because I hated how he used Bijan Robinson. I didn't like the offense in Atlanta, but I will give him credit now. What he has done specifically with Justin Fields is completing 73% of his passes so far this year. He's got a 73% completion rate, and he's got his average depth of target is 6 yards. This is a guy that in Chicago was chucking it deep, just bombing and would immediately bail out of a read and just start running. And what Arthur Smith has done is play within the offense, take what the offense given you, run when you need to, but honestly, he has done a really good job at using what Fields does well and controlling that offense and also taking what you have in Pittsburgh. They've got George Pickens. Austin had a nice game, but they're still developing the other pass catchers outside of Pickens. They've got some nice run game. But anyway, so Justin Fields, they're 3-0. And this is a guy that was, a top 15 draft pick in the NFL for a reason. So I'm excited for Justin Fields.
Yeah, as am I. But the other thing that Arthur Smith has done, because he's been a head coach, he's taken a head coach perspective on his approach as an offensive coordinator. Oftentimes, offensive coordinators, it's about, hey, we got to rack up yards, we got to rack up points, we got to make it all about me. He understands that defense is really, really good. Our goal here is to win games. What can I do on offense to help our team win? And that's what he's doing. Running the football certainly helps them. And again, putting Fields in a comfortable environment because they're running it so well. But make no mistake about it, this is about defense first. The offense has been a great compliment.
Well, 1,000%. Like, Fields in Chicago was like, dude, you're the #1 pick. You've got to, go put us on your back. And here they're just like, no.
And their defense
we got it.
Good. Their defense was good, too.
Exactly.
And they didn't do that, yep.
But to your point, Arthur Smith and Mike Tomlin have said, listen, Justin, just don't lose the game for us. Like, you need to be like a game manager with some explosiveness, but our defense will take care of that.
Here's a point to keep in mind. We're 6 weeks and 2 days away from the trade deadline. There's going to be chatter that maybe the Steelers should trade Russell Wilson. They absolutely should not. $1.21 million, Super Bowl winning backup. Justin Fields could get hurt. He got hurt last year. You plug Russell Wilson in if that happens. The Steelers are in a great position. After getting rid of all of their quarterbacks, they have 2 now that they can count on.
Is this not a referendum, though, on what we expect from young quarterbacks, what we should or shouldn't, Jason? Because as we've talked about it, this is the second time we're talking about it. They get a second opportunity, a different chance, a different look. They can look like different players.
Yeah, one of Tom Brady's great gifts is he lengthened the runway for quarterbacks. He played till he was 45. And so if you pull back and you're making decisions on these quarterbacks, you just say, hey, if these guys go about it the right way and they have some talent and a desire to be great, they can grow and develop. And if it doesn't work because the environment's not right early in their career, give them another chance. You go back to all the way back, New England Patriots draft Jim Plunkett early on in the 70s. He has a disastrous career there. He gets banged up. Al Davis. He says, let's go get that Plunkett guy. The guy wins 2 Super Bowls for the Raiders later in his career. So just because these guys get discarded, they don't have early success, hey, give them another opportunity. Too many good examples in the NFL right now.
Well, but you mentioned, we talked about Sam Darnold. You're talking about Justin Fields. Baker Mayfield's 2-1. He's played great in a new environment after bouncing around a little bit. And we're not even going to talk about Geno Smith, who is 3-0 and, got resurrected in Seattle as well. So, credit to Seattle. And I agree with you, Coach. There's a lot of quarterbacks.
Bryce Young's next.
Bryce
Young's next.
We hope so. And like you said, you mentioned Tom Brady. He's been very outspoken on, let's not put these guys out there right away. The college game's totally different. How they receive the play call is different. Let's have these guys come in and learn. He talks about his career, learning from Drew Bledsoe, seeing how a quarterback is supposed to day in, day out handle the game plan, handle the checks, all of those things, leadership, how much he learned when he was sitting on the bench. And he even talks about the Patrick Mahomes, the Alex Smiths, like those guys, the Aaron Rodgers, how it helps to learn from these other quarterbacks and what it helps you do.
And the other part of this thing is the world is different in 2024, right? There's so much noise. There's so much attention on the NFL and on these guys. So you put them out there, they don't have success, and there's just this immense external pressure that everybody has to deal with. Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback of his generation. Andy Reid was smart enough to say, you're sitting. Learn the game. When you're ready to go, we're going to give you an opportunity to play. And I think it's the right way to go.
But one last point. Reid had the equity to do that. Some of these coaches have to get that guy out there because if I don't, I'm getting fired.
Yeah, but let's go back. Let's go back to Bryce Young. What was the big decision of this weekend?
Yeah.
Dave Canales, the rookie head coach, 0-2 with Bryce Young. Let's go back to the veteran. The veteran gives us a better chance to win. And sure enough, Carolina responds the right way. They're the story on offense this week.
Yep. Andy Dalton, 300 passing yards, 3 touchdowns.
Red rifle, baby.
Quarterback to do that. Yeah, and does it in week 3. Right. So we'll see what happens with Bryce Young. Guys, I want to move into a word association game, and we're going to do it for teams that were 0-2 getting their first win. We're going to start with the Giants getting their first win against the Browns.
My word, superstar. Malik Neighbors is a superstar. There were some scouts out there that thought he should be the #1 wide receiver over Marvin Harrison. People were like, but he's got a bad environment, everything like that. Malik Neighbors is all of that. He's a superstar. He carried that team on his back today.
Daniel Jones lives, and we're talking about quarterbacks getting their second chances. Jones is kind of getting his with a team that was like on the verge of pushing him out the door, and so far so good.
I agree with you, Barry. I'm sticking with Neighbors, and I'm saying that boy good. Neighbors, I mean, unstoppable out there, just play after play. 37 targets in 3 games. They know he's good.
You know what I loved about him? The drop last week against the Commanders.
Yeah, yep.
He's the kind of guy that responds the right way, not unlike Saquon Barkley. You know, those guys know how to do it. 8 sacks is the thing for me. This Giants defense, they have not been real good. For them to respond and show up, all those guys up front getting after the quarterback was impressive.
What about the Broncos and Bo Nix, the rookie quarterback, getting the win against Tampa Bay? That had a hard start to the season.
Hope. They looked awful through the first 2 weeks, and Bo Nix looked not ready for prime time. And so West Coast team traveling east for a 1 o'clock game against a 2-0 Buccaneers team. That's a tough defense, and Bo Nix looked great. Like, credit to Sean Payton, who sort of turned it around. They got rid of the dink and dunk. They attacked down the field. I think if you're a Broncos fan, you're Sean Payton, you have hope, because Bo Nix looked good today.
Progress. Because the Broncos have been a work in progress. At some point, you've got to show some progress. And I think that one of the reports that came out of last week that the Steelers cornerbacks were laughing about how slim the playbook was for Bo Nix. I could see Sean Payton with that Parcells in him, using that to needle guys, to try to get them to perform at a higher level. Whatever he did, it worked.
In the Knicks of time. I mean, this team, you can't continue to lose if you want to be relevant in the division, especially in that division when you have the Chargers, you have the Chiefs in there. So they needed to get this win. And Sean Payton talked about it this week. Like, our backs are against the wall. We got to go win a football game, not just play well or show we've improved. Let's go win. And they went and did it.
Belief. I know Sean well. I played for him for 3 years. I spent a day with him out at training camp this summer, and he told me point blank, he said, of all the quarterbacks that came out, we wanted Bo Nix more than anybody. Now, that might be in hindsight. I get all that. But he loves his guy. He thinks he's an outstanding player, loves his leadership, a lot of snaps in college. Their evaluation was, this guy performed better than anybody, and he's more NFL ready than anybody. The first 2 weeks, it didn't look like that, but his belief in this guy, Bo Nix feels that belief. When your coach believes in you and puts you out there and says, hey, you're the guy, you're the captain of this football team, the player feels that, and that showed up today.
All right, I don't know if I can call him the Red Rifle because I don't have red hair, so we'll start with you, Jason. But Andy Dalton dealing against the Raiders to get the win.
Am I trying to come up with a headline? What am I doing?
Word association.
Oh, word?
What are we doing here?
I just love the Red Rifle. I'm trying to come up with a word, but hey, I love when a veteran quarterback is ready to go, and he certainly was. He's watching these other guys get opportunities, but he's played a lot of football at this level, and he went in there like it was nothing. And the mentality of a relief pitcher, I don't need all that work. Just give me an opportunity. He showed that today, and that team responded.
And we went down to Vegas, blackjack. He hit 21, blackjack. And Andy Dalton's the type of guy, I'm like, oh, he's going in the game this week. He's getting ready for post-career opportunities. He's thinking about media probably. This isn't going to look good. Guy goes out there, to Barry's credit, I'll give you another one. He called it today, 3 touchdowns, 300 yards. Yeah, blackjack.
Yeah, look, luck be a lady tonight in Vegas, too. I'm kind of taking your word association, but the reality is they got the Raiders at a time when the Raiders, I think, assumed
they were happy.
They're just going to show up. And after the game, Antonio Pierce, coach of the Raiders, said we got some guys who made some business decisions today. Now we're going to have to make some business decisions about them. I don't think they were ready to go. I think they thought this was an easy win. We've arrived. We beat the Ravens, so it played right into the Panthers making that switch and getting the win.
Pierce saying that, too, after the game without reviewing the film. I'm always nervous sometimes when you say a statement like that because sometimes the way you feel right after a game isn't exactly the same once you actually go and watch the film. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
My word is professional. This is what I said all week long on Fantasy Football Happy Hour, which is that Andy Dalton, and I say this as in respectfully, is a professional NFL quarterback. Is he a superstar at this stage of his career? No, he's not. But he's a professional NFL quarterback who can run an offense. And you know what? The Panthers, they improved their offensive line. They brought in Deontay Johnson. They have Adam Thielen. They drafted Xavier Legette. Chuba Hubbard's a nice running back. Like, they have pieces in that offense. And just for whatever reason, you know, Bryce Young couldn't get there. And I was just like, bringing in Andy Dalton, who's a professional quarterback who can run an offense, is going to elevate that entire team. And I didn't think they'd go into Las Vegas and blow out the Raiders. But I did think, to your point, I said it this morning, I said, Andy Dalton's going to show up and he's going to ball out a little bit. Partially that's because of the Raiders defense, but partially because, again, Dave Canales has had success with that offense in the NFL. And all you need is somebody, much like he did with Geno Smith, much like he did with Baker Mayfield, give him a professional quarterback to run that offense, and you're going to see success.
All right, what about the word association with the Rams' 14-point comeback against the 49ers?
Gutty. Gutty. Like, he's got no Cooper Kupp. He's got no Puka Nacua. The defense is banged up. They had no business winning that game. They're up against the NFC division champs, and and they won that game. They were dead and out, and that was just a gutty win by Sean McVay and the Rams.
One word, the German word where you take delight in the misfortune of others, Schadenfreude.
Yep.
I think that's it, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. I don't know. You went to Princeton.
Italian.
Princeton guy can help me out. It's the only German I know. That's okay. There isn't an Italian word.
It's all about love.
Although we do take delight in the misfortune of others. But the Rams aren't going anywhere this year. Go ahead and mark it and clip it and play it when they make the playoffs, but they're really not going anywhere this year. To stick a dagger into the 49ers a little bit, to beat them, to take a win away from them that they had right in their hands, they got to be feeling good about that in LA.
Win in their hands. We had a little chart where how high, Maria, close your ears, but this reminded me of Super Bowl 51, right? Looking at those charts and seeing all of that. That's the type of comeback, right? Just like Super Bowl 51. That's the feeling I got today watching it.
I just love the patience of the quarterback and of the coach. And I've seen it before with Sean McVay, just having poise and composure in those situations. And again, it goes back to that word belief, about just kind of hanging in there and hanging in there. They do the right things. They get a break. The Niners missed the field goal. It would have been a 2-score game at that point. So we got to be honest with that. But they took advantage of it, and I'm happy for them. I don't know that I'm going to throw dirt on them like Florio has. I think they can fight a little bit. They need to get their guys back, or it's going to be tough sledding.
I figured out the Italian word.
Okay.
What is it?
We're ready.
It's savage.
If you're listening to the podcast, it was a hand gesture. That's what we will say. We're going to go ahead and get off air so that no one loses their job. It's just week 3, so we have to make it to the end of the season. You can join us next week. We've got the Bills. We've got the Ravens. Football Night in America starts at 7 Eastern.
Vikings win a couple games and Florio goes.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.